DeWanna Bonner in the hot seat after saying what she stated last night in her press conference, man. I can't lie, it does look like some hypocrisy going on.
DeWanna Bonner continues to take shots at the Indiana Fever and the Fever fans. I think it's absolutely disgusting.
The audacity is unreal. Dana Bonner just set a whole new standard for delusion. In a jaw-dropping ESPN interview, she actually said, "I wouldn't change a thing." This, after taking nearly $200,000 from the Indiana Fever, cashing checks for months, then disappearing for 5 games citing vague personal reasons, only to later force her way off the team. Now she's in Phoenix, flipping the script and playing the victim like she's the one who was wronged. It's honestly insulting.
I wouldn't do anything differently. I think my journey is my journey and I'm going to accept that. It carried me to where I am in Phoenix and it happened that way for a reason. I mean, really, that is a wild statement.
You stole that money from Indiana. You signed up for that bread and didn't deliver. You didn't show up for work. You made up bullcrap excuses to not be.
The arrogance is unreal, especially when you remember how Fever fans welcomed her with open arms, treating her like royalty. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, she was already plotting her exit. If you're just as stunned and disappointed as the rest of us, hit that like button and flood the comments with "Investigate Bonner," because what we're about to break down will expose exactly how this betrayal went down, step by step.
Came over here, she signed a max contract. She knew Phoenix didn't have the bread. She got 80 here and went and got the rest over there. I think it's trash.
I wouldn't do anything differently. You took 80 grand from the Indiana Fever. You could have just signed. Like, that's one of the things, like, I don't understand why you take these interviews. I don't understand why someone would take an interview and say that, when the reality is that all you did was took a whole bunch of money from a team to not.
Bonner's comments didn't just miss the mark. They were a slap in the face to every fan who invested their money, time, and support into her. To sit on national TV and act like she did nothing wrong after cashing in and then walking away? That says everything you need to know about her integrity or lack thereof.
Refused to show up to work while receiving money, while taking payment. You refused to show up and do the job. And let's be clear, you wasn't even good while you was here. You was shooting threes hitting the side of the backboard.
But this is definitely going to be a part of her history, man. Because the new wave is taking over. These new fans are watching. So at the end of the day, yeah, it's going to be a part of her history, unfortunately.
At this point, it's not even about basketball anymore. It's about professionalism and basic respect. Fans buy tickets, wear the jerseys, and support the franchise because they trust the players to show up and put in the work. Bonner's stint in Indy wasn't some soul-searching journey. It was a calculated cash grab. And in the end, both the team and its fans were left feeling misled and abandoned by someone they once believed in.
This is DeWanna Bonner. I wouldn't do anything differently. I think my journey is my journey. I'm going to accept that. It carried me to where I am now in Phoenix, and it happened that way for a reason. It didn't happen that way for a reason. You forced yourself out of Indiana, DeWanna.
But here's where it gets even more infuriating. Once you peel back the layers and examine how this all unfolded, it exposes a much bigger problem. How professional contracts are being exploited, and how some athletes are getting way too comfortable dodging accountability. Let's start with the most damning part, the massive gap between what Bonner promised and what she actually delivered after signing that lucrative deal.
Don't understand this. I don't understand why DeWanna Bonner is taking these interviews at this point in time, because I'm like, look, you're in Phoenix, you've got what you wanted, you've got what everyone expected you wanted all along. Everything's gone your way. Indiana haters are going to love you because you screwed over the Fever. They're going to love you because you screwed over the Fever. Phoenix Mercury fans are going to love you. Rival fans are going to love you because you basically screwed over the Fever. Fever fans are going to hate you because you screwed over the Fever.
We're talking about a veteran who averaged a pitiful 7.1 points per game, while clanking shots and jogging around the court like she couldn't care less. This wasn't someone trying to find their rhythm. This was a player mailing it in, biding her time, waiting for the perfect moment to make her exit. She only started 3 of the 9 games she even bothered to show up for. That alone tells you how little she was contributing, even when technically available. The numbers speak for themselves. 3.8 rebounds, 1.6 assists per game. That's bench-level production at best. And this was supposed to be a seasoned free agent, someone who would bring leadership and stability to a young, hungry squad. Instead, she didn't just fall short. She disappeared.
First of all, the fans are the victim. The organization was the victim here. Like, why are we sitting here, she up in these articles like she was a victim, like she did, like something was done wrong? No, the fans are a victim. They welcome you with open arms. They embraced you, and you turned your back and you quit. It's that simple. You quit. You refuse to show up to work. You wasn't hurt. You wasn't sick. It wasn't a personal fit. No, you just didn't want to be on the team.
And yet, even with her lackluster performance, Fever fans stayed patient. They held out hope. They gave her the benefit of the doubt. But instead of channeling that goodwill into a turnaround, Bonner made a different choice. She stopped trying. The Fever front office built their roster and cap space around the idea that she'd be a key contributor. And how did she repay that trust? By ghosting the team the moment things didn't go her way. It was calculated, manipulative, and it sends a dangerous message to the rest of the league. If you don't like your role, just check out until you get what you want. But here's what really infuriates every Indiana Fever fan who's been watching closely. The moment Bonner slipped on that Phoenix Mercury jersey, she magically turned back into the player she was supposed to be all along. Suddenly, she's dropping 22 points and pulling down 11 boards like she never missed a beat in just a second game. Funny how that works, right?
You came here, you stunk it up, and then you got benched. Just because you was okay with coming off the bench in another situation don't mean you was okay with coming off the bench in this situation. So I want to know what's the real? What's the real? Because you can't say while you was here, you said, "Oh, I've never played in front of this many fans." You were embraced by the fans. You spoke highly of the fans while you were here. You were a starter, but you wasn't playing well. And that was nobody else's fault that you was shooting threes, hitting the side of the backboard, and you was smoking layups. And then your starting spot got took, and then all of a sudden you refused to show up to.
This wasn't about needing a better system or finding her rhythm. This was proof that Bonner was flat out sandbagging her time in Indiana. The fire was always there. She just chose to hide it until she could shoot up where she wanted, next to her fiancée Alyssa Thomas. That sudden jump in performance? It wasn't just suspicious. It was a dead giveaway. Even casual fans could see right through it. Her breakout game in Phoenix wasn't a comeback. It was a confession. She had the ability to help the Fever. She just chose not to.
Gonna keep it real. Chloe Bibby, the new 7-day signee, has fit in and played better than DeWanna Bonner did anyway. Let's be clear here. Chloe Bibby came in first game, knocked down 2 threes. DeWanna Bonner first game versus the gum on the bottom of the shoe, Chicago Sky. We had to jump through hoops of fire and do all types of abracadabra magic tricks to get her to finally score to break.
Compare her stats in Indiana to her sudden surge in Phoenix, and you'd think you're looking at 2 completely different athletes. That's what happens when someone finally decides to try, after months of coasting. It's manipulation, plain and simple. And it reeks of entitlement, using your professional platform to play games while the people who believed in you are left holding the bill. But here's the most outrageous part. Bourne is now pretending like she gave Indiana her best. Standing there with a straight face, acting like she didn't sandbag a franchise and disappoint an entire city. Meanwhile, Phoenix fans are celebrating her resurgence, conveniently ignoring that what they're enjoying is built on the back of someone else's betrayal. This isn't just about one hot game. It's about setting a dangerous precedent, one where players can duck accountability and walk away clean. And what makes it all sting even more? Remember how she arrived in Indy, talking big, embracing the fans, acting like she was ready to be part of something special. No complaints, no warning signs. She smiled for the cameras and said all the right things until the moment she didn't.
Quote from DeWanna Bonner. I have no problem coming off the bench. I have never been that player. I don't feel like I have that reputation. Now, fair enough. You have won 6th Woman of the Year, respectfully. But that don't mean that's what you thought you were walking into. I believe you thought you was coming here to be a veteran leader, an OG, and a starter. She came here as a starter, was stinking it up, got injured, and Lexi Hall stepped in, and Lexi Hall should have been the starter from day one. DeWanna Bonner should have never been a starter in an Indiana Fever uniform. That's a fact.
Bonner once raved about the overwhelming fan support in Indianapolis, saying she had never experienced anything like it. She seemed genuinely moved by the electric crowds, the sea of Fever jerseys, and the unwavering loyalty of Indiana's fans. She spoke passionately about chasing a championship, mentoring young stars like Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston, and becoming a leader in a rising franchise. These weren't throwaway media quotes. They were heartfelt endorsements of a city and a team that embraced her completely. And that's exactly what makes this feel so personal for Fever fans. People bought her jersey. They shared her story. They defended her when her production didn't match her paycheck. Indiana fans made excuses for her, believing she just needed time to build chemistry. They highlighted her rare flashes of brilliance, called her the veteran glue piece, and held out hope she'd turn the corner. But now, seeing how quickly she flipped the switch in Phoenix, it feels like the rug's been pulled out from under them, like she may have been planning her exit all along. The support was genuine, but her commitment, it was never real. And for the fans who believed in her, it stings like a betrayal.
The way that Caitlin Clark wants to play, which of course is the way that the Fever plays, that she is their nucleus, they want to push the ball down the court. They want to be quick. They want to be fast moving. At 37 years old, that style of play might not fit DeWanna Bonner very well. Like, that just doesn't highlight her strength. So I think it's probably a combination of style of play reasons, personal reasons. And yeah, like you said, at this point, she probably wants to win basketball games, make a little bit of money.
This wasn't some mutual, respectful split over strategy. This was a seasoned pro exploiting trust, reaping the perks, soaking up the spotlight, and then vanishing the moment a better situation came along. That's why the fan outrage hasn't faded. This wasn't just a team switch. It was a calculated exit, with Bonner torching every bridge on her way out after violating the faith so many had placed in her than I in any other profession. You don't get to sleepwalk through your responsibilities, cash the checks, and walk away like it was all just part of the game. And what makes it worse? The deafening silence from the Fever front office. No explanation. No accountability. Nothing. That silence only adds fuel to the fire and raises serious questions about how this entire situation was managed. Was it poor communication? Were false promises made about playing time or leadership by head coach Stephanie White that didn't hold up when the season got real? With both sides keeping quiet, fans are left to piece together a mess that never should have spiraled this far out of control.
Hall's success and continued success in the system with Caitlin from last year, I think, was the big reason that DeWanna Bonner was moved to the bench at all and kind of trying to figure that out. When I went back through last week, just kind of like poring over all of these press conferences and like public comments and like my interviews that I had done in Indiana, the thing that stuck out to me was the first day, I think, of training camp, DeWanna Bonner had mentioned like she had to catch her breath because these guys are fast.
Yeah.
It looked like you was mad that Lexi Hall took the...
If you connect the dots, Bonner's dissatisfaction seemed to spike right around the time Lexi Hall started stepping up and owning more minutes. That's when the tension became impossible to ignore. If head coach Stephanie White had promised Bonner a starting role, only to backtrack when Hull outperformed her, that a failure in planning and communication, and it lands squarely on the coaching staff. The Fever's refusal to address what really happened leave them looking either like they lost control of the situation or like they're actively covering something up. Neither scenario inspires confidence, especially for future free agent considering Indiana. And then there's Bonner's tone-deaf post-exit narrative, where she frames coming off the bench as some kind of career insult. It would almost be funny if it weren't so transparent. This is a player who's literally won Sixth Woman of the Year 3 times. That award exists to celebrate excellence of the bench, something she once embraced. Now suddenly, it's beneath her? The contradiction is glaring. And frankly, it reeks of someone trying to rewrite the story, not to tell the truth, but to protect their image.
Figure out, everything's changed when we add pieces, and pieces come back where you get your shots. Normally the game before, you probably won't get that same shot. And I'm just trying to figure out where you fit on this team, and it's going to take us a little bit of time to gel. So just be patient with us. We're going to be okay.
It's going to take us a little bit of time to gel. Just be patient. Oh, man. Bonner. But, man, it is crazy to hear her say that. It is crazy. Yeah, I can't hold you. The fact that now she's more so of understanding it's going to take some time to find your footing. It's, you have to be patient. Man, that's tough, Bonner. That's tough. Coming from somebody that literally gave up. You gave up on Indiana Fever, man. You should have gave it some time, Bonner.
Let's be clear. This wasn't about a better fit or some philosophical clash over basketball roles. This was about ego, control, and a player who couldn't handle not being the center of attention. The moment Bonner's starting spot became uncertain, right as Lexa Hull began earning more minutes, she disappeared. Suddenly, personal reasons popped up out of nowhere. You don't have to be a genius to connect the dots. She wasn't benched. She bailed. Instead of proving she still had value, she folded when challenged. That's not leadership. That's entitlement. And the truth is, Bonner could have thrived as a veteran off the bench, mentoring rising stars like Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston while still being a scoring threat. But she didn't want to contribute. She wanted control. And when she lost it, so did her interest in Indiana. Now she's rewriting the story, acting like she was mistreated, hoping fans forget how she goes to the team. Her post-departure spin is insulting, especially when she pretends coming off the bench was some career low. Let's not forget, she won Sixth Woman of the Year 3 times. She used to take pride in that role. But now, suddenly, it's beneath her. That's not just revisionist history. That's gaslighting. What's even more obvious is a real motive behind the trade, personal convenience. Not basketball fit, not title aspirations. The second she left Indiana, everything lined up perfectly for her relationship. Her fresh start just so happens to be in Phoenix, where her fiancé, Alyssa Thomas, plays. That's not a coincidence. That's calculated. Her everything happened for a reason. Speech hits different when you realize the reason was never about the team. It was about proximity to her personal life. And let's not ignore how complicit Phoenix was in all this. They rewarded a player who walked out on her team, undermined her contract, and manipulated her way into a trade. That sends a dangerous message across the league. If you complain enough and stop showing up, you can get exactly what you want. Meanwhile, Indiana eats a cap hit in the roster hole. That's not team building. That's exploitation. But perhaps the most alarming takeaway here is what it says about the Indiana Fever's front office. They got outplayed. Let's call it what it is. They got worked by a veteran who knew how to manipulate the system. This isn't just a Bonner problem. It's a management failure. When you're building around a generational talent like Caitlin Clark, the last thing you can afford is a culture where divas run the show and contracts mean nothing. Bonner exposed a lack of structure. She showed every veteran in the league that Indiana is a soft target. Make noise, fake loyalty, and bail when it suits you. And the front office? Silent. No statement. No narrative control. Just a mess left for the fans to untangle. Now it's up to GM Kelly Kroskoff and COO Amber Cox to fix what's broken and convince future free agents that Indiana isn't a franchise you can just use and leave. Because right now, it looks like the Fever got punked. And until this team proves it can enforce standards, hold players accountable, and prioritize team over personalities, it'll stay vulnerable to being played. The Bonner saga wasn't just drama. It was a blueprint for how to cash out without showing up. That's not just a PR issue. That's an organizational crisis that if you're as frustrated as the rest of us, drop Investigate Bonner in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. Click the video on your screen now, and we'll see you in the next one.